Well, I know you were going to be spending some time here in southeast New Mexico. We're taping this as of Thursday morning, June 9th. Talk about your visit. What are you doing here?
Well, we are, number one, continue to talk about jobs and the economy. At the top of the list in jobs, we have to discuss the lizard. The most amazing thing happened last week when I was in Washington. Artesia High School showed up there. We went over to take the picture on the steps of the Capitol, and at least 4 students asked me where does it stand on the lizard. You know, for a high school student to understand a political issue that is that kind of remote and that involved tells me that our kids are listening well and that the issue is being really gotten out onto the streets. That's where it needs to be. So we'll keep the issue alive and keep fighting for jobs in southeast New Mexico.
Speaking of keeping that issue alive, John Cornyn, a Republican senator from Texas, has introduced an amendment in the Senate regarding the sand dune lizard. Your thoughts on this thing starting to work its way through in Washington?
When a senator will stick it onto a bill, then there's a great chance it's going to happen. I really commend his efforts. We just believe that the senators in New Mexico should be taking the same step. But all we need is one amendment, and we can block it completely. I think that's a great move. But what we need to do is keep the fight going, keep the issue alive, because we're not after the win on the lizard. They've got 1,000 more species. Literally, one group has filed petitions to list 1,000 species as endangered. So it's the fight more than the single issue. Yeah, I'm glad if we win the lizard, but we got the prairie chicken right behind that, and we've got thistles, and we've got dandelions, and everything that the government is saying might be endangered if we continue economic activity is where we need to be concerned.
You think with all the rally that was held in Roswell back in April, and with John Cornyn doing his thing in the Senate, do you think now that the feds are starting to take notice of what people are saying around here?
I don't think that the feds really care what people are saying. I think that there is an insensitivity. They simply say that they're required to protect the species without consideration for the economy, without consideration for people's jobs, or even the effect in people's lives. And so that's not going to change just because we get their attention. I think that they're going to be resistant all the way. We're going to have to win on multiple fronts. So let's keep the fight going. Keep standing up. Keep speaking up. It's too valuable a point in our history to let this thing slide by us.
Speaking of counties standing up, I know Lewis Derrick, Eddy County Commissioner, has been in here multiple times talking about how Otero County is getting ready to stand up to the federal government. I know that he's trying to get something going here in Eddy County for Eddy County to stand up to the federal government. I want to get your thoughts on that in just a second. But first, tell us just exactly what's going on in Otero County regarding all that burned timber from the Mayhill fire.
Well, the Otero County Commission passed a resolution saying that it's dangerous in Cloudcroft because of the management of the forest by the U.S. Forest Service. So they have said that they're going to start cutting trees in the national forest. The county is going to trump the federal government and begin to cut trees. I think that's extraordinarily important. I think that's what we must be doing. The federal government has become too strong because we've allowed it to. So I commend Commissioner Derrick. I commend the Otero County Commissions. I'm telling them I'll stand right beside them as the federal government tries to come in and squash their efforts, that I'll be there and stand beside them, because I believe the solutions to many of our problems are to regain local control. We have people in Washington telling us how to live, telling us what to do on our economy, telling us how to use the land, and it's just not working and it's not right.
You think you almost think we're going to be getting to, because I've heard reports saying that if the economic picture does not improve by next summer, that there might be rioting in the streets here in the U.S. Do you think right now we're kind of at a stage in the history of our country where people might be getting baseball bats and pitchforks and marching in the streets of Artesia, Roswell, and so on, and then possibly on their way to Washington?
Well, let's take a look at the world in general. The riots across the Arab world are over hunger. In other words, that's where it began. Food prices began to escalate because government policies around the world are not working. Every government is spending more than it is bringing in. It's causing inflation, and people just don't have enough cash in their budget to make ends meet. I believe that we're going to see great social unrest in the U.S. because of the same thing. In order to make this government pay for itself, we're spending $3.5 trillion every year. We're bringing in 2.2. In order to make it work, we're printing money, which is causing inflation. We're seeing food prices skyrocket. The price of gasoline is skyrocketing, not because they're worth more, but because your dollar is worth less. I think that that's going to cause major concerns with Americans, and I think you'll see tremendous, tremendous social pressures.
Let's continue to talk about some other things that are going on in Washington. I just showed you a report from the American Farm Bureau Federation, and now I guess there's a movement in Washington to get farmers and ranchers to get commercial driver's licenses to operate their equipment. Your thoughts on that?
Again, it's an indication of a government that is too strong, impacting things that it should not be impacting. There's no reason for a tractor driver out on a farm to have a commercial driver's license. It's just a government that is trying to put its will into every business in the country. Our government is choking down jobs because of these regulations. We already are not competitive worldwide. If we're going to have jobs, the government needs to back off.
All right. Let's talk about things now on the international front. You were talking about some of the demonstrations that have been going on over the past few months in the Arab world. I know that the hot talk now, if you will, in Washington is regarding Libya and the action that's being taken there by NATO and the U.S. Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that the American taxpayers are doing enough and American soldiers are doing enough. We fought two very long-running wars, Afghanistan and Iraq. Our sacrifices have been enough. If the rest of the world wants Gaddafi out of Libya, then let the rest of the world pay the bill and let the rest of the world provide the young people for the sacrifice. We've said it's a NATO operation, but we're providing 66% of the troops, and we're providing over 60% of the funding. If it's a NATO operation, let Europe pay for it, not America.
I know the debt ceiling has been another big thing. The national debt is, almost out of the atmosphere and probably even on its way to the Milky Way right now. But give us your thoughts and some of the steps that might be taken regarding the debt ceiling right now.
The spending in Washington is a huge problem. We voted, President Obama had asked last week that we have a clean vote on the debt ceiling. That means no reforms, no spending cuts. That to me was not clean, but that was his terminology. Only about 5 Democrats voted for it. The rest of Congress, Democrats, Republicans alike, voted no. So the president invited us over to the White House. The Republicans went one day, the Democrats the next day. When we walked in, I was aghast to hear the president say that we don't have a spending problem in the country. We have a revenue problem, which means he wants to raise taxes on Americans. The wrong thing at the wrong time. A tax increase will kill more jobs, make our budget even more out of balance. The debt is the single largest problem that we face in the country. It's the largest national security issue that we face. We must start cutting the size of government. We've got to stop the spending, and that's the stalemate that we find ourselves in. The debt ceiling vote is simply when a family runs up its credit cards, the bankers or the credit card company says, we're not going to loan you any more money. Well, we've reached that point in the country. Without extending the debt ceiling, without raising it, we can't borrow more money. Then we have to start living within our means. Every American family has done the same thing. They've tightened their belt. They've found where they can cut. The American government should do the same thing.
We see polls regarding the way Congress is handling things, and of course, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt when you look at which news media organization is conducting it and everything else. I'm just kind of curious, what are you finding out from people as you travel around the district regarding the job not only of Congress but not only the job of Congress, but the job of the Obama administration?
I find people are very upset that they have not seen the government try to rein itself in at all. They see Americans across the spectrum making sacrifices that are not made by people in government. I find them to be angry, frustrated, and scared about all at the same time, and they have a right to be. This financial crisis that we are living in is caused by too much government spending, and that's the bottom line. We have to, the American government can't keep making promises that it doesn't have the money to pay for. So I'm one of the ones saying we need significant spending cuts, and we also need reform in the way that we spend our money. You can't just do one; you've got to have both.
I know that we're a lot of attention here in the state now is being turned to the western side of the state. There's a massive wildfire burning in Arizona. Looks like it's about to cross the line into Luna, New Mexico, and I know that we've got a very significant drought going on around here. Quite a few counties have been have been declared eligible for drought assistance. Your thoughts on what's going on with the fire situation and also the drought assistance here in New Mexico?
Well, obviously, we're in one of the driest periods in decades in New Mexico. Much of the West is beginning to burn up. I think that the problems in Arizona are a result of our forest policies. If the trees are thinned and cut, then the fire simply becomes a grass fire. As it is, we have too much fuel in the forest. They explode. The fire is now at about 500,000 acres, burning about 70,000 acres per day. They've got 2,500 firefighters. We're spending almost $2 to $3 million a day, and basically all they're doing is now stopping the fire from burning structures. They're not trying to put it out at all. This tells me that the policies that we have in place are working badly, and we need a review of the entire process.
Has Governor Martinez contacted you about asking for federal help or anything like that?
We've been in touch. I was on a conference call with the state officials day before yesterday. Our staff was on the same call yesterday. So we're in constant communication with the governor's office, and they seem to be managing well. They're anticipating well. They're monitoring exactly what's going on with the fire daily. So I'm very pleased with the response that I'm getting out of the governor's office.
Well, I know we've covered a lot of ground here in about the last 12 minutes or so. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about in closing, or you'd like to cover anything else that we may have not covered yet?
Well, just people need to be aware that we're at extraordinary times in the world and in the nation. We're deciding what value system we have. We're deciding what it all means to us. I will tell you that our economy is greatly at risk because of the policies coming out of Washington. Our government is doing more to kill jobs than to create jobs. We could rebuild this economy almost overnight. It wouldn't take years. It would take just a matter of a couple of months if we had the right tax policies and regulations. So I ultimately believe that with all the problems that we face, that good times are around the corner, because I see Americans coalescing, saying, let's fix the economy, let's get this thing going right. And I'm there to work on that and see that we create jobs for America. That's the bottom line.